This is one of those that are more tailored for the question and answer period, actually, because these things we should know already. Title is Gossip is a Sin. It is the latest trend in national news and is tearing the country apart. And we love it. At least it seems that we do, because we go after it at every opportunity. The gossip rags are making a killing by turning news on its ear. And most of the news that reaches us, at least through television, magazines, and the internet, is not truly news, but is gossip. Prove it to you. How many of you knew anything about Will Smith's marriage before the last 3 weeks or so? Yeah. Anyone that doesn't know isn't watching the news enough. He was slapped at the Grammys, was it on one of the Oscars, or one of them, a couple of weeks ago by Will Smith. And instead of reporting on the incident, they got into their bizarre marriage. And I won't say any more than that, because anything that I say was from the news, and therefore, in my eyes, isn't necessarily true. But it's gossip. But according to this, they had an open marriage and other thing, and that in itself, to me anyway, states the state of the marriage. It wasn't one. But a lot of the news about that was garnered from not the minds of the individuals, but what occurred on our cameras and through our television sets. And we don't know what happened there, but we assume we do, because the television painted us so succinct a picture of this trashed marriage. But we all know now that we know so much about them. But by the biblical thing, as I will go through these scriptures at some point, we know nothing. We think we do, but that's how they want us to act, because they want us not thinking, emoting according to their manuscript. And not so much about Will Smith's marriage, but about everything we come into contact with. That at that point, they control our minds, and that's what they want. Most by one news agency. a big one, the New York Times. But all news organizations have taken their lead from them because it is a profit leader. P-O-R-P-R-O-F-I-T, leader. But not a profit leader. P-R-O-P-H-E-T. One of the things that can destroy any church or ministry or any other organization is gossip. Other terms in the Bible for gossip include backbiter, busybody, slanderer, secret teller. Everybody wants secrets. Everybody wants secrets. Talebearer, whisperer, follow around, and I don't want to talk about anybody, but every time you look around, somebody's watch them, whoever they are. So then, a biblical definition of gossip would be to spread rumors or secrets, speak about someone else maliciously behind their back, sometimes openly. I've seen it openly. Repeat something about someone else that you have no right to repeat, or don't even know that it is true because you heard it from someone else. But this is true in the case of large churches. Would it not be true of a nation? Here are a few Bible verses and helpful quotes about gossip. Not how to disseminate it, because we all know that already. But how to prevent it. Starting with Proverbs, the 16th chapter, the 28th verse. And anywhere that says a man, a woman also can do this. Know that up front. A dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer, there's that dark word again, and a whisperer separates close friends. These are short, not very sweet, but very much instructional if you want gossip out of your life. Continuing in Leviticus, the 19th chapter, the 16th verse. We've heard these before, and today we hear them again. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. Look into that. That is when you stand up in court and tell lies on your neighbor. If you didn't understand it in this old King James. And it ends with that phrase that ends with 3 words that we should fear whenever you see them together. That term, in my own mind, says, period. I said. And that's all you should be able to hear. You know that phrase. I am Yahweh. And that should end any discussion about this subject right there. This is what I say about it. Anything you say at that point doesn't matter to me. I am Yahweh. That should end it for you. Proverbs, the 11th chapter, the 13th verse. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. There's a time for this, and you usually know when it is, that some things are not there for everybody to know, but you know generally when that is. My personal thing is, once somebody dies, I don't talk about something anymore. Whatever they did dies with them. That's part of the process. Whether you realize that or not, that's part of the process. But he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Continuing in Proverbs, the 20th chapter, the 19th verse. These are very similar, but all of them were brought forth for a reason. Proverbs, the 20th chapter, the 19th verse. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. In a small church, that sometimes is kind of hard. Fortunately, this isn't one of those small churches that is that hard. I don't hear much here, but what I do, I keep it covered. Proverbs, the 26th chapter, the 20th verse. This is why. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. Think about that a little bit and you'll figure out what he's saying there. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. And there is no whisperer. Look at that. The Bible spelled it out for you right there. And where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. As charcoal to embers, to hot embers, and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man or woman for kindling strife. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body and cause problems for everybody in their path. Continuing at Jeremiah, the 6th chapter, and the 28th verse. Jeremiah, the 6th chapter, the 28th verse. They are all stubbornly rebellious, going about with slanders. They are bronze and iron. All of them act corruptly. Jeremiah, the 9th chapter, the 4th verse. Let everyone beware of his neighbor. Is this a end-time prophecy? Some think so. But everyone beware of his neighbor, and put no trust in any brother, for every brother is a deceiver, and every neighbor goes about as a slanderer. And now we know why many consider this an end-time prophecy. Verse 5, everyone deceives his neighbor, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies. They weary themselves committing iniquity or sin. Heaping oppression upon oppression, and deceit upon deceit. That sounds like the world right now. I would conclude, if I didn't know already, that this was an end-time prophecy. They refuse to know me, declares the sovereign Yahweh. Therefore, thus says the sovereign Yahweh of hosts, behold, I will refine them and test them. For what else can I do because of my people? And there's almost a little dig in there, like when he said the same thing about the people of Israel in relation to Moses. Behold, I will refine them and test them, for what else can I do because of my people? Their tongue is a deadly arrow. It speaks deceitfully with his mouth. Each speaks peace to his neighbor, but in his heart he plans an ambush for him. Shall I not punish them for these things? Declares the sovereign Yahweh. And shall I not avenge myself on a nation such as this? This also is an end-time prophecy. Located where? In the Old Testament. Those who cut the book in half do so at their own peril. Verse 10, I will take up weeping and wailing for the mountains, and a lamentation for the pastures of the wilderness, because they are laid waste so that no one passes through, and the lowing of cattle is not heard. Both the birds of the air and the beasts have fled and are gone. Verse 11. I will make Jerusalem a heap of ruins, a lair of jackals. Why jackals? They will eat anything, including leftover human bodies. Every word of this book has a reason. Isolate any word in the book. That word alone will have a story that lines up this story with all the others, if you read it right. And that word jackals is one of those words. I will make Jerusalem a heap of ruins, a lair of jackals. And I will make the cities of Judah a desolation without inhabitant. That makes it clear for you what's happening with those jackals on other birds of prey in the area, or animals of prey in the area. Verse 12. Who is the man so wise that he can understand this? To whom has the mouth of the sovereign Yahweh spoken, that he may declare it? Why is the land ruined and laid waste like a wilderness, so that no one passes through? And the sovereign Yahweh says, because they have forsaken my law that I set before them. And he doesn't say it here, but after I said it before them, they said they would obey it. And they did this 3 times. You might make a mistake once, might make one twice, but you do it 3 times, it's not a mistake. It's intentional. And he knew that. He knew it after the first time, but he gave him a couple of more chances. That is his character in general. And we understand that. The world doesn't. And the sovereign Yahweh says, because they have forsaken my law that I set before them, and have not obeyed my voice or walked in accord with it, but have stubbornly followed their own hearts and have gone after the Baals as their fathers taught them. Continuing in Proverbs, the 11th chapter, the 9th verse. And he sums it up in one verse. An hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor. Proverbs, the 10th chapter, the 18th verse. He that hides hatred with lying lips, and he that utters a slander, his words, not mine, is a fool. Proverbs, the 16th chapter, the 27th verse. An ungodly man digs up evil, and in his lips there is as a burning fire. A preview of days to come, in a word. Proverbs, the 6th chapter, the 16th verse. We all know this one, but we'll review it because it'll sink in a little bit deeper. These 6 things does Yahweh hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief. A false witness that speaks lies. He once again moves back to the courtroom. A false witness that speaks lies. And he that sows discord among brethren. This is the background of gossip today in U.S. news. The Will Smith thing was just the beginning of it. There are so many more. And I don't have time today to get on to all that backbiting and busybodies and malicious gossip and whispering that is going on in the news every day. Psalms, the 41st chapter, the 7th verse. All that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. Against what? Yahweh himself? Verse 8. An evil disease, say they cleavest fast unto him. And now that he lies, he shall rise up no more, they think. Yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my own bread, hath lifted up his heel against me. But thou, O Lord, be merciful unto me, and raise me up, that I may requite them. By this I know that you favor me, because mine enemy doth not triumph over me. That enemy in this case is Judas. And as for me, thou upholdest me in mine integrity, and settest me before thy face forever. That conclusively tells me what this is talking about. 13. Blessed be Elohim, the God of Israel, from everlasting and to everlasting. Amen and amen. Proverbs, the 25th chapter, the 23rd verse. The north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue brings forth angry looks. Continuing in Romans, the 1st chapter, the 28th verse. Romans, the 1st chapter, the 28th verse. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge Yahweh, Yahweh gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of Yahweh, insolent, haughty, boastful. Of what? Of what? Inventors of evil. They make it up as they go on. Disobedient to parents. Know anyone like that? We all do. Sometimes we see them in the mirror. I have. Foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know Yahweh's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. To practice something, you have to do it over and over again. And if you give approval to something that someone does over and over again, there was no question how you feel about that thing, whatever it is. And at that point, he's going to look a certain way at you. And don't get too mad about that. Well, you won't be there long at that point anyway. How you feel about it will go down as you do, into a hole. 2 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, the 20th verse. Second Corinthians, the 12th chapter, the 20th verse. For I fear that perhaps when I come, I may find you not as I wish, and that you may find me not as you wish. Because he's thinking that what he sees in your mind that's the real you. Really it is, whether you think so or not. That perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder in your general visage, or he sees you this way, because that's what he sees in your mind. And you have to know that the only one in the universe that sees into your mind this clearly is Yahweh and his son, Yeshua, your Messiah. First Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 9th verse. I say this one with a mirror in front of me. Deacons likewise must be dignified, not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine, not greedy for dishonest gain. They must hold the mystery of the faith with a clear conscience. And let them also be tested first. Then let them serve as deacons. if they prove themselves blameless. Their wives likewise must be dignified, not slanderers, but sober-minded, faithful in all things. From 1 Timothy, go down to the 5th chapter in the 13th verse. Besides that, they learn to be idlers, going about from house to house, and not only idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying what they should not. So I would have younger widows marry again. Why? Put your hands on something. Somebody laughed. I heard the same voice up here. Sandra's father used to say that all the time. Get your hands on something. And your mouth off of. Not only idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying what they should not. No, I would not have younger people do this. Marry again, bear children, manage their households, and give the adversary no occasion for slander. In other words, no idle hands for the devil to manipulate. Continuing in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. But understand this, that in the last days there will become times of difficulty. An understatement if there ever was one. We don't know yet, but there's some evil times coming on the horizon for all of us. People will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable. That's a word you don't hear much. Even when they get what they want, they keep arguing with you. That's what unappeasable means, if you had any doubt. Unappeasable. I'm giving you everything you want. You don't know everything I want. Give me more. Slanderous. Without self-control. Brutal. Not loving good or God, for that matter. Treacherous. Reckless. Swollen with deceit, conceit. I won't say that. It'll put too many people in a big net. Swollen with conceit. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of Yahweh. Having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. It keeps saying the same thing. There are some people that I see these videos all over the YouTube about the kind of people that you should have in your life. Most of them are too narrow in scope. I recommend them not for people, but not as a be-all and end-all, because most of them have large gaps in there for their little inconsistencies to go move through those gaps. Those gaps are huge. But the Bible itself says, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power, avoid such people. The advice is good, but not extensive enough. You know that better than they do. Titus, the 2nd chapter, the 2nd verse. Older men are to be older, also women, but to be sober-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and in steadfastness. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good. How can you avoid gossip? Consider these simple steps to be sure you are not involved in gossip. Do not associate yourself with one who is known as a gossip. That's easy. In word, not always so easy to do. Verse 2. Well, not verse 2, but when someone starts to gossip, change the subject or walk away. That's effective. If you see someone walk away from you while you're talking, that should be in some small way an indication that what you're saying isn't healthy. If you are not part of the problem or the solution, stay out of it altogether. If you have fallen into the bad habit of gossiping, ask Yahweh to change your heart. This is why. Point 5. When you have been the victim of gossip, as we all have done at some point in our lives, whether you know it or not, confront the parties that spread this rumor, whatever it is. And final verse here, Matthew 18th chapter, the 15th verse. But if your brother shall trespass against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. We have tried this and it's not very effective, but people that continue in this vein. If he hears you, you have gained your brother or sister. Verse 16. If he will not hear you, take one or two more with you, so that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. And we've had this happen too. And the person insisted on continuing in that bad direction. We let them go. I'm not going to follow you there. If you know that the end of that line is very hot for you, I'm not going to follow you there. Verse 17. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it to the whole church. When one case we did this. But if he neglects to hear you, hear the church, hear this and obey it, please. Let him be to you as a heathen and a tax collector. In other words, get away from him for a while until such a time as this person relents and backs down and talks of peace and will give up and turn away from this kind of behavior. Any questions? Any comments? First, Ruby.
It's a comment. I think throughout life, we've all, like you said, not only been a victim of gossip, but we've also gossiped.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we thought, well, I'm not gossiping, but I just wanted to share it with you. The fact that the word share meant gossip.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we don't want to accept it, we know that our mouths tend to itch. Oh, she's just got to know the truth about this.
Mm-hmm.
I had many times where I slipped and I could say, my gosh, I just said that. I knew I shouldn't have said it, but I just wanted to share it. And then I thought, maybe it was because I wanted to feel better, so I won't hurt so much. And I said, my goodness, this is horrible. Now, the pride sets in where should I say something or not? So now here I go saying, no, I have to confess it. Now in my mind I'm thinking, now I have to confess it, now I have to come forward and just apologize, and then how did that make me look to begin with? Had I not said anything, had I not shared what I wasn't supposed to. So yes, gossip is very, very easy to do.
It's a part of human nature, right?
Yes, and we have to learn how to catch it and say, oh, nope, I can't say it. As much as I would like, nope, it's a problem. Yes, it is.
Dwayne.
For the pastor to expose it to the church invites a knock on the door from the sheriff's office and a subpoena handed to you, you're being sued for slander. I saw, they didn't go that far, I saw a pastor resign in tears because he knew something and he wanted to tell the church, but he didn't dare. They told him, if you don't like our lifestyle, you can leave. So he left.
Wow.
What else can you do?
What
It got
can you
so
do?
hot for one of the offenders, he had to leave town too.
That's sad in a church situation, any situation that, for that matter. Thurman was next. Okay, Sandy.
I remember this incident, and it's still to this day I think about it. We were in Jamaica for a feast, and one of the members brought their wife to the feast in Jamaica. And I was young back then. I didn't even have Rashida. I think I had to be in my 20s. So this woman and this man was in the church, and he brought his wife, but she wasn't in the church. And we were going back to the hotel. We were at this event or whatever they were having in Jamaica. I can't even remember. But we were all laughing and talking and dancing. It was like a little party. And we were all on our way back to the hotel. And when we got to the hotel, before we got on the elevator, the woman kind of stepped back and came to me. And Ray he wasn't even a pastor at the time. He was just preaching at the time. And she whispered to me, she said, "He beats me." So I'm like, who? She says, "My husband." And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't. I was young, didn't know what to do.
She was a stranger, you said?
Yeah. No, she wasn't a stranger.
Oh, okay.
She was his wife.
Okay.
He knew her,
okay.
but she wasn't in the church.
Okay,
he was
got
in the
it.
church.
Gotcha, okay.
So I didn't know what to do with that information. I did not know what to do with it.
Yeah, you know if she's telling the truth or not.
Yes. So I didn't know what to do. And we would always go to Bible studies to their house, and she would always she would be lying on the couch and he would, kiss her. And I thought he was so loving to her. I'm like, that's just weird, because he seemed so loving, he was always, patting her and kissing her. And so then she called, she got my number, and she called me. And I said, well, why don't you call the police? And she said she does. But when the police come, because this man was a part of not military, but a part of the police, they wouldn't take him in because they were friends. They were friends. So I took it upon myself to go to an older woman in the church who I was friends with. And I said, well, let me take it to her because she's older, she's in her 50s, I don't know what to do with this information. And I took it to her and I said, I don't know what to do. She brought it to me, I don't know how to handle it. I don't know what to do with this information. And I took it to the older lady in the church. Well, it backfired on me. The older lady took it to the man. And the husband beat her.
Beat the old lady?
Beat the wife.
Again.
And the wife called me and said, I will never tell you anything else. I will never. And I was like, I was in the middle.
Were the sides of her being beaten? I mean, did she?
She was smaller than my father. She was really thin.
Okay. Did she have any?
But she ended up leaving him. She ended up leaving him, and she died. And then when this man would come to church, he would just look daggers at me because, what do you do?
Wow.
I didn't know what to do with, so I went, when she called me and said he's still beating me, and I'm like, well, how do you help? What do you do with this information? Yes, so I went to an older person that was in the church for many, many, many years, but I didn't know she was like this with the man. And she went to him to say, hey, your wife, and I'm like, why would you do that to a woman who was being, but she ended up leaving him. She finally got away and she left him, but she's dead now. But I never understood why wouldn't, not saying that women should stick together, but if you know someone is being harmed and they're not in the church, and that's where that worldwide thing is. Well, you're not in the church, so she doesn't matter anyway. So she doesn't really matter. And that's how this woman thought. If you were outside the church, you really didn't matter. You were not like one of the in crowds, and you didn't have the Holy Spirit, and you weren't, so whatever. So she felt the need to go to this man and say, and so he beat her, and she called me. She said, I would never tell you anything again. I thought you would help me. And I said, well, what happened? She said, you told someone. They told him he beat me again. And I'm like,
and you would have thought that the woman that you confided in.
yes.
And even though this woman probably knew him,
yes,
she still would have kept it